Oh, it's freezing out there. 14 degrees is what it said in my car. I hate it. I hate it. But I do think that we are going to have a warmer Christmas. Last year was super warm. Super warm. I'm going to have a pretty warm Christmas because I'm going to be down in South Carolina. Well, for a couple of days, I'll be down in South Carolina. So December 26th through January 1st, you guys are going to tune in because I've got some pre-recorded segments for you, and I've got some best of shows that you will not want to miss. And then we're going to have a lot of fun in the new year, 2024. It's an election year, so we're going to remain your election headquarters here at Cities 92.9. I've got so much to talk about this morning. First, we're going to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. He told CNN's Van Jones. So, do you guys know who Van Jones is? I hate how Joy Reid, Van Jones, Al Sharpton, everybody says that these people represent the Black community, and that's just not true. I don't know who Van Jones is. Do you know who Van Jones is? He's a CNN contributor, I guess, and he's supposed to represent the black community, which he doesn't. But anyway, Vivek Ramaswamy told this guy to shut the fudge up on Sunday at AmFest, at America Fest. He was on the microphone. So today's show gets into a little bit of that. And Portland, they have defunded the police so bad. Now they have robots patrolling the streets in Portland, Oregon. Wow. And then a little bit later, we are going to be getting into Eric Adams admitting that President Joe Biden and his administration are not going to help him with the New York City illegal immigrant crisis. Well, I could have told you that, Eric. I could have told you that. You didn't have to go down and meet Joe Biden and the administration there. I could have told you they're not going to help you because the only thing that will solve this border crisis, the only thing that's going to solve the illegal immigrant issue is deporting them and closing the border and building the wall. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to help you, Eric. And all the money in the world is not going to help you, Eric, JB. They're going to try to get all of these federal monies from Joe Biden and from the Biden administration, and it's not gonna matter. If anything, it's gonna probably make the problem worse. And I'll get to that here coming up in just a little bit. As always, I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can text me at 309-451-9299. And quick housekeeping note before we get into today's show. I want to start with the Vivek Ramaswamy telling Van Jones to shut the fudge up, which was pretty funny at AmFest. But shows your game. Shows your game 2023. This is a great opportunity to try to win a free deer processing from Bloomington Meats and a $100 gift card to Quinn Scholes Taxidermy. So we're going to randomly select and notify a winner on December 29th. So you got about 10 days to submit a picture of yourself on our website. That's cities929.com, showing off your trophy bucks, ducks, pheasants, quails. So good luck. Happy hunting. Submit that picture of yourself to try to win a free deer processing from Bloomington Meats and a $100 gift card to Quinn Scholes Taxidermy. Okay, let's get into it. Vivek Ramaswamy, according to the New York Post, this is how they kind of covered it. So Ramaswamy, who's vying for the GOP nomination for president in 2024, offered a brash suggestion for the cable news personality after Jones said on air he was shaking. He's shaking. This is how you know this guy does not represent the Black community. Or Joy Reid. Who's another one? Text me, let me know. Who else? Al Sharpton. These people are so ridiculous. I have some Black friends. I mean, nobody is just like sitting there shaking, watching Vivek Ramaswamy on the GOP debate stage in fear that he is going to be some sort of Hitler. Okay, nobody thinks that way, especially not the Black community. The Black community is not afraid of Vivek Ramaswamy for what he says on the debate stage or what he says on the campaign. But Vivek Ramaswamy, uh, on the fourth GOP debate stage, that was the fourth one he spoke. And I guess Van Jones, this CNN personality, this journalismer, he was shaking and he said that he felt like he was watching, quote, the rise of an American demagogue. Hmm. So Jones called the tech entrepreneur, Vivek Ramaswamy, a very, very despicable person whose talking points during the debate were one step away from Nazi propaganda. What? This is what The Hill reported. You see how the mainstream kind of reports this Vivek Ramaswamy going after this cable news personality, Van Jones. But anyway, so then you get to the mainstream media, and this is a quote from Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay. He says, quote, you get to the mainstream media, then you've got this character, because that's exactly what he is. He's a character. He does not represent the Black community in any way, shape, or form. You get this character, Van Jones, on CNN afterwards, after the debate, saying that this is a rise of an American demagogue who's going to live 50 years longer than President Donald Trump. This is dangerous. I'm shaking. And he's quoting Van Jones here. And Ramaswamy said, according to the outlet here, the New York Post, just shut the fudge up. That's what he said. Now, I do think that this comes shortly after. You guys know that Elon Musk, when he was talking about advertisers who were going to try to bully him into going woke, he said, fudge you, fudge you. I'm not going to bend the knee to these advertisers, and I'm not going to change who I am just to cater to you and your woke propaganda, your progressive agenda. That's what Elon Musk said. This is about a week or so after that. Maybe Vivek Ramaswamy is taking a page out of Elon Musk's book here. But let's watch the full clip, because I want to make sure that we know exactly what Van Jones said on CNN. This is, like I said, he's a hack. He doesn't represent you, me. He doesn't represent the Black community in any way, shape, or form. And what was it that Vivek Ramaswamy said on the debate stage that was so bad? He said that Jan 6 was an inside job. He said that Ukraine actually isn't a democracy. And we know that because we've got Zelensky out there threatening other countries, European countries, because, this is exactly, not exactly what he said. I'm paraphrasing, but this is the sentiment here. Zelensky, he says, who knows what the Ukraine refugees, thank you, European countries who are allowing these Ukraine refugees uh, and allowing them to come and seek asylum in your countries. I appreciate that. However, if you stop giving us money, who knows what those Ukraine refugees will do in your countries if you decide not to give us any more money. So far, we've given well over $200 billion, $200 billion. And I'll put that into perspective for you. We could make probably, we could give every family in Maui, if that their house is destroyed in the wildfire, every single family, probably $100 million each to rebuild their lives. Okay, so that's what we could do for those people in Maui. We could give every homeless veteran probably $5 million each. Probably every veteran. If I'm like, that's a ton of money. $200 billion is a ton of money. And here we have Zelensky strong arming these countries and pretty much threatening them, saying, hey, these people that you've allowed into your countries, these refugees, they might just get a little rowdy. They might just start burning your buildings down. They might be BLM-esque if you do not continue giving us money. That's Ukraine. They are not a democracy. They aren't even doing elections this year, 2024. They came out and they said we're not going to do elections anymore. And I think that we won't have an election in 2024. either the United States. We're very, very close to not having elections anymore. And don't take my word for it. Just look at the headlines. You've got people posting headlines. It's The Atlantic. You've got the New York Times creating headlines that say, do elections really matter? Should we continue to have elections? Elections are bad for democracy. So you've got all kinds of that. I want to get back to Van Jones. All Vivek Ramaswamy said that was J6 was an inside job. I've talked a lot about J6 and how it was an inside job. And he said that Ukraine is not a democracy. In fact, there's people over there who are killing Christians, and they don't have elections. They also have a leader who threatens other countries with riots with their refugees. He says that he might actually, I mean, he made the insinuation that he would equip these refugees with the ability to overtake their countries if they do not give the money up. So that's all Vivek Ramaswamy really said. He said that Ukraine is not a democracy, which it's true. They don't have elections, folks, and they kill Christians over there. And then also, J6 was an inside job. He said a couple of other things, but here's what Van Jones said about that, about Vivek bringing all of this up. And you guys can watch on the live stream. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Here we go.
And the smug, condescending way that he just spews this poison out is very, very dangerous, because he won't stop Trump, but he's going to outlive Trump by about 50 years. And you're watching the rise of an American demagogue that is a very, very despicable person. Yeah. And I literally was shaking listening to him talk, because a lot of people don't know that is one step away from Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
But the good thing, Van, you could.
And the smug condescension.
What? Oh boy, this guy does not represent anybody. So another thing that Vivek Ramaswamy brought up on the debate stage, and I've got to take a quick break, but another thing he brought up was the Great Replacement theory. He said everybody thinks that this is some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but really what it is, it's just a basic statement of the Democrat Party's platform. That's what this is. The Great Replacement theory, this is what they want. And if you don't believe me, I've got the clip. Democrats have got a supercut clip of the Democrats saying that they want the Great Replacement theory. So this is the idea that Westerners, the idea that people who love this country, people who love America, are being replaced retroactively. And that is true. That is factual. And you can call that replacement theory. You can say it's a conspiracy theory, whatever. And you don't have to believe me. But I'm going to play a clip for you. And believe your eyes, believe your ears, and let Democrats tell you for themselves that, yes, we want to replace white people here in America. That's just a basic statement of the Democrat Party's platform. They want to replace white people. So I've got the supercut. A little bit later, we are going to be talking about Portland. They defunded the police so badly that now they've got robots patrolling the streets. Yes, robots. That's next. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. I'm glad to be back and live this morning. Go ahead and smash the like button. Ukraine is what Biden and the Democrats want for the U.S. Yes, they are not a democracy. In fact, they even have an ambassador who is a Satan-worshiping psychopath. Quite literally, she is a witch. She's self-proclaimed witch, and she does spirit cookings. So she does some spirit cookings, and she actually has invited high-ranking members of the Democrat Party. I'm talking about the Podesta brothers who ran the Hillary Clinton campaign via email to spirit cookings. So that is Ukraine in a nutshell for you. It's not a democracy. They kill Christians over there. And you're so right, Bob. Ukraine is what is what Biden and the Democrats want for the United States. And they are not going to have a 2024 election. This is new because it's wartime or whatever, and President Zelensky is going to remain the president into 2024. They're just not going to hold elections. And I think that um, we are operating Ukraine kind of as a proxy for the United States. They are just kind of a vessel, and this is an experiment. And we're going to see how the people react here in the United States. We're going to see how the people react in Ukraine to this news that they're not going to have an election anymore. And then we're going to be taking notes vigilantly here, and we're going to probably not have elections in 2024. Now, I don't know how that's going to play itself out. I'm convinced of that. I'm pretty sure that we are not going to have a an election, and if we do, it'll probably be um, a variation of what we know. Like, we already don't have elections. Like, we don't have election day anymore. We have election season, and this isn't even. It's not even the day where we go and we vote for our elected officials. Um, I do have to take a break, but we're going to be back in just a little bit. Smash that like button if you're watching. It's a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory. The Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory. It's just not. It's a basic statement of the Democrat Party's platform. And that's what Vivek Ramaswamy said on the debate stage. And that's what led Van Jones to say that he was going to be the next Hitler. I mean, this is a quote from Van Jones on CNN. He said, "This is the rise of an American demagogue who's going to live 50 years longer than Donald Trump. This is dangerous, and I'm shaking." This is what Van Jones said. And look, the idea that Westerners, the idea that people who love this country are being replaced retroactively, that's true. You can call that replacement theory, but don't believe me. Believe your eyes and ears, okay? So I've got the clip here. This is a supercut. Watch Democrats start this conspiracy, okay? They're the ones who they say that this is a platform. This is a platform of the Democrat Party. They want this. And if you don't believe me, let's just take a lesson.
Going to be a majority brown country. White people will not be the majority in the country anymore.
This will be the first generation ever in American history in which whites will be a minority of the generation at some point.
As of 2007, every year, babies being born in this country, whites now are the minority.
In 2044, everyone is going to be a minority.
As the demographics change, as white people become the minority in the country, which is coming.
Demographics is destiny. Demographics is destiny.
Demographics is destiny, right? The country is changing.
I've been saying it here. Other people have been saying it here for years now, even before Donald Trump. The demographics is destiny.
The white population is declining for the first time in history in America, while the number of multiracial Americans have more than doubled.
So we live in a country where the demographics are changing. It's becoming less white.
Correct.
Okay.
You'll be announcing that we're calling the 38 electoral votes of Texas for the Democratic nominee for president. It's changing. It's going to become a purple state and then a blue state because of the demographics, because of the population growth.
The growth in Texas has been almost entirely driven by non-white population growth, mostly by Hispanic and Latino population growth.
The idea that whites will not be the majority, I mean, it's an exciting transformation of the country. It's an exciting evolution and progress of our country in many different ways.
The white population is declining. It was always on the upswing. So that speaks to the beautiful diversity of America. It speaks to how that population the demographics will weigh in politically.
I believe anybody who echoes the replacement is to blame, not for this particular crime, but it's for no purpose except profit and or political benefit. And it's wrong. It's just simply wrong.
There you have it, folks. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. It was never really a conspiracy theory. The Democrats started this. They're the ones who said they want the Great Replacement theory. They want the Great Replacement to happen. This is the idea where Westerners, white people, Americans, honestly, not even white people. It's really just anybody who loves this country. They want them to be replaced, and they're doing that at the southern border. Which I do want to get to this. Eric Adams admits that President Joe Biden is not going to be helping New York City with the illegal immigrants and with this crisis going on in New York City. And the reason why they're not going to help him is because the Democrats want the Great Replacement theory. And to be honest with you, Eric Adams, I don't know if he's really in on it. There's all kinds of sex allegations against him now because he spoke out against the Democrat Party. I don't think he really wants this for New York City, which, I mean, he's a rabid leftist. Okay, you would think that he'd be in on this Great Replacement theory, but maybe he's not. What Eric Adams needs to call Joe Biden to do is to close that border, build the border wall, and deport these people out of New York City back to where they came from. That's what needs to happen. Eric Adams is just big mad that the Biden administration is not going to help, i.e. throw money at the problem, the illegal immigrant crisis. We're going to be back here in just a little bit. I also want to get to this story. Chicago. Chicago Sun-Times, they're reporting that the city council actually rejected the bid to ask voters to weigh in on Chicago's sanctuary city status. So there was this referendum. It was a proposed referendum, and it didn't even really get off of the ground. And I'm going to talk about who championed this referendum. His name is Alderman Anthony Beale. And he's a Democrat, folks. There are no Republicans. No Republicans. I think the last Republican mayor was like in the 1930s in Chicago, but there's no Republicans on that city council. It's majority Democrats, there's 50 councilmen, I believe, and then I think 3 of them are independents. The rest are Democrats. This was brought forward by a Democrat, and it was shut down very, very quickly. We're going to chat a little bit about that. Plus, Eric Adams, we're going to get to him and how he admits the Biden administration is not going to be helping him with this illegal immigrant crisis. Now, Portland, they actually defunded the police so badly over there, they're using robots now to patrol the streets, which is interesting. And yet they say, oh yeah, we're for the little guy. The Democrats, they'll sit there though, we're for the little guy, we're for the working man. You're going to replace all of our jobs with robots. You're going to defund the police so badly and then replace the police with robots. You're not for the little guy. I'll be back next. This is The Morning Buzz. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, cities929.com. We'll be back in just about 5 minutes. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. I'm very excited to chat a little bit about the Chicago story, the Chicago City Council. There was a meeting and they were called to consider this issue about getting the voters to weigh in on Chicago's sanctuary city status. So according to the Chicago Sun-Times, Mayor Brandon Johnson and his city council allies used a maneuver to squash this referendum. And this referendum would have allowed Chicago voters to weigh in on whether Chicago should remain a sanctuary city. So Brandon Johnson and his Chicago City Council allies, they squashed this. And the city council ultimately, they didn't even let this get off of the ground. Instead, Johnson ruled that there had to be it ruled that this proposed referendum championed by Alderman Anthony Beale, that this referendum needed 2/3 vote to even talk about it, to even have discussion about this. So 33 alderpersons, that's 33 council members. There's 50 council members overall. Like I said, all of them are Democrats. There's 3 independents on that council. And you needed 33 to even consider the measure. And the council's vote was 31-16, which doomed Anthony Beale's bid. So Beale's proposed referendum would ask voters in March 19th, in the primary, March 19th, should the city of Chicago limit its designation as a sanctuary city by placing spending limits on its public funding. So it's not even really removing the sanctuary city status, this question. Really what it is, it's just putting spending limits on it. Hey, we're not going to give $9,000 stipends to illegal immigrants. We're going to put some spending limits on this if we are going to be a sanctuary city. Now, one of the worst parts about all of this is that the city council could not even be bothered to care about any of this, even for even 1 hour. They didn't want to be bothered for more than 1 hour. They didn't even discuss it. They squashed it. Like I said, Brandon Johnson and his allies, they couldn't take 60 minutes out of their day to discuss this matter. So that should tell you how bad things are in Chicago. What a weird coincidence that the very same people who do not require voter ID, and they don't want to require voter ID because they believe it's suppression, also want to waste taxpayer dollars of the so-called suppressed voters on things that do absolutely nothing to benefit them. So this sanctuary status does absolutely nothing to benefit the voters. These are actual voters, and quite frankly, they are hurting these communities by allowing the sanctuary city status to just go unchecked. I'm going to be back talking a little bit about that. Smash the like button, and we're going to be back in just about like 2-3 minutes. So what have we talked about so far? Well, we talked about Vivek Ramaswamy saying that the Great Replacement Theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but really it's just a basic statement of the Democrat Party's platform. And then I played for you a supercrat of Democrats who started this whole conspiracy. It's not really a conspiracy because they believe, and they say it out loud, that Westerners and people who love this country are being replaced retroactively. That is true. That is true. And you can call it replacement. You can say you don't believe me. You can still dismiss it as conspiracy theory. That's fine. But I encourage you, go back to the podcast later. I'm not going to play the clip again because it's a bit lengthy, but go back, believe your eyes, believe your ears, and let the Democrats tell you for themselves that they want to replace white people. Not even really white people. They want to replace Westerners. They want to replace people who have this love of country. Okay. So we're talking about replacing people who love this country with people who want free things. That's what this is all about. And I'm going to get to the immigrant issue here in New York City and also the city council, the Chicago City Council. and how they really suppressed the black vote. They're always like, no, voter ID, that's going to suppress the black vote because we don't believe that black people can go out and get an ID. But they actually suppressed the black vote here. And I've got that story. It's the Chicago City Council. But this great replacement, they want to get rid of people who love this country, who have love of country, and they want to replace those people who want free things. They want to replace people who love the country with people who want free things. That's what's happening. Just to be clear, I would love to have 10 migrants from Uganda who take the naturalization oath and want to start a business, work hard, and love this country and love what this country is all about. I would rather have 10 of those Uganda migrants than one Swedish socialist. Now, the reality here, who is coming over from the southern, who's coming over? Who's coming over the border illegally? The reality is we're not getting a massive influx of these Swedish socialists. We're not getting the Uganda capitalist. We're not getting those people who take the naturalization oath and want to start a business and work hard. We're not getting those types of people. We're not getting even the Swedish socialists. Who are we getting? We're getting a lot of people from South America who are not fleeing oppressive governments. They're not fleeing oppressive governments. We're also getting a lot of Romanians. Now, they are not fleeing oppressive governments. And really what they see here in America is this safety net of free stuff that the left dangles like a carrot and says, hey, you want free stuff? Up. You're going to have to vote for all the depravity that comes with it. That is the replacement that is taking place. That's the replacement I'm talking about. There are a bunch of people here who want free stuff. And I'm going to tell you about an experience I had with a Romanian illegal immigrant. Now, he was here. Let me say this. If people are like, Kat, call them illegal immigrants. Well, technically, they're not illegal because they're non-citizens, I guess. And I hate using that language. It is illegal because they shouldn't have even come here in the first place. So this Romanian so-called refugee, you're not a refugee if you don't flee an oppressive government. You're not an asylum seeker if you go to multiple countries before seeking so-called asylum here in the United States. Asylum seeker is a very specific term, and under international law, it says that you cannot be given asylum status if you go to multiple countries to get to America. Now, I spoke to this Romanian refugee, or so-called refugee. He's not a refugee. The best way I can describe him, now he wasn't here, he can't be deported because he has a visa. He has a means, like a work visa, or he didn't even have a work visa. I forget exactly what he had. He had some sort of means to stay here because he had the paperwork that said, hey, yeah, you get to stay here from our government. They've baked it into the cake. Okay, so they are illegal because these laws are unconstitutional and they go against federal laws, international laws when it comes to immigration. But technically they're not because they've created all of these laws and their laws, I guess. Anyway, just like the DACA program it is unconstitutional. And I think it's state sanctioned human trafficking, really what it is. We're taking young people, not even really young people, because the average age of people who receive the DACA or who get on the DACA program, the average age is like 30-year-old men. That is the deferred action childhood arrivals. That's something Obama did. But anyway, this Romanian immigrant, he says that he comes here and he goes to Spain and then he comes here. So he's not an asylum seeker. He's not a refugee because he didn't flee an oppressive government. He said that he came here because he thought there was opportunity as far as money goes. Now, I even asked him straight up. I said, would you have done the same thing? Would you have come here knowing what you know now? He's begging on the street corner, by the way, here in America now with his small child and wife. And he says, no, I wouldn't have come here. He goes, you guys don't have money. It's all plastic. That's what he said. And these people, they come here thinking they're going to get free stuff and all of this, and they do. They get the $9,000 stipends in the city of Chicago. But here's the thing, they have to vote for all the depravity. I don't think it's a coincidence that his young daughter that he had while he was begging on the street corner, I don't think it's a coincidence that she had a shirt that said mask up. And it was like a little smiley face and it was on her shirt and there was a mask over the smiley face and it said something like mask queen or something like that. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the Democrat Party and the left gets their claws into these illegal immigrants, and they say, "Hey, you want free stuff? Well, you got to vote for all the depravity that comes with it. All of the $9,000 stipends. If you want to get a leg up, then you are going to have to vote the way we tell you to vote." So this is the replacement that's taking place. Okay, I do want to get to Portland, Oregon, and how they are. Now they've got security robots. They defunded the police so badly. So elected officials who once let anarchy take over Portland, Oregon for nearly 200 days. I'm talking about the mostly peaceful, mostly peaceful protests, mostly fiery protests. I'm talking about those protests that took place for over 200 days. Those elected officials who have also contributed to this downtown area. There's a downtown area in Portland where it literally looks like a zombie apocalypse. People are bent over themselves, high on fentanyl, and it's disturbing. I actually saw something the other day. This was actually in Lincoln, Illinois. Uh, I walked in and there's Narcan. Have you seen this? There's Narcan in a vending machine, and you can put in a couple of bucks and you can get Narcan nasal spray, which Narcan is supposed to. I mean, what are we doing? We're putting Narcan in vending machines now? I don't know. I was like, "Phew, this country is going to hell in a handbasket." But there's a zombie apocalypse in the downtown area of Portland. Now, what Portland is doing, they are utilizing what's called security robots. Because it turns out when you constantly bash and defund cops, you got fewer cops. And when you get fewer cops, officials have to pretend to give a crap that you've got, fewer cops. And now a security robot is patrolling part of the downtown area there in Portland. I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Cities 92.9. I'll be back in just about 5 minutes. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Good morning, Kat. Good morning, John Reed. Go see my friend John Reed. He's over there at Sam Lehman Chevy. They are great folks over there. Are you working today, John? If you're watching, let me know if you're working today. Chad, we're going to get to your comments here for our radio friends because I love that story. That's next here on The Buzz. My wife and her family immigrated here from Hungary in the early 80s. So there were adults, 2 children, 2 suitcases. So they escaped communism, came here legally, and my wife's father was a mathematician. It took them over 15 years to become citizens of this country, the country that they love. My wife becoming a physician, and her brother a federal prosecutor. It's very sad. It's a very sad thing when you have to sell drugs like Narcan over the counter because the drug problem in society has become such a epidemic and has become such an epic crisis. This isn't if this isn't a wake up call, what is? Yes, Chad. Thank you for messaging me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You guys can be a part of the show. And telling me about that story about your wife and her family and how they immigrated over from Hungary. As I said I would rather have 10 migrants from Uganda, from Hungary, who took this naturalized oath, which your wife and her family did. They took the naturalized oath. They became citizens. They started their own businesses. They work hard. Your wife is a physician. The brother is a federal prosecutor. And they love what this country is about. I would rather 10 of those types of people instead of one Swedish socialist. Now, the reality of our situation here, where these immigrants are coming over the border, it's not really Swedish socialists coming over the border. A lot of people are coming from South America, and they're not fleeing oppressive governments. Okay, they are not fleeing oppressive governments. What they are doing, they're they're seeking a social safety net of free stuff that the left dangles like a carrot, and they're like, "Come here, you want free stuff? You have to vote for all the depravity that comes with it. We want voters, and you get the $9,000 stipend there in Chicago if you vote the way we want you to vote." We're gonna get to more of that, plus the security robot that is patrolling the streets of Portland. They defunded the police so badly there that now they've got to utilize security robots because it turns out when you constantly bash and defund cops, you have fewer cops. And then when you have fewer cops, the elected officials there, they have to pretend now to care about you and to give a crap that your downtown area there in Portland is just going to hell. So we're going to get to all of that plus Patriot Power plug with Mike Coolidge. But first, gifts to not give a woman. So guys, you better turn up the radio. Okay. If you want to have a season, be merry and bright, these are some Christmas gifts that you need to avoid. Household cleaning supplies. Don't give your wife a bottle of Windex. A scale, supplements, or weight loss products. Now, I wouldn't mind the weight loss products because that stuff can get expensive, but don't give me a scale. That's pretty offensive. I already hate the scale. I don't need a scale. But yeah, don't get the wife a scale. Just avoid weight gain products. Anti-aging skin care products. Now, this one I don't agree with. People say not to give the wife anti-aging skincare products. The wife loves skincare products. Okay, women love anti-aging skincare products. They love all kinds of moisturizers and things like that, and that stuff is expensive. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that one. The worst gift that I've ever gotten was a blender. I already had a blender. It was an ex of mine, and he got me a blender. I already had a blender. I loved my blender. I used it every day, and I didn't need a blender. And I know that sounds crazy, and you're like, "Man, can't be grateful." I didn't want the blender, and I thought it was a terrible gift. But folks, we've got to go. I'm going to be back here in the 7 o'clock hour. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to be chatting a bit about Eric Adams. Eric Adams admits that President Joe Biden and the administration, they're not actually going to help him with this New York City immigration crisis. What really needs to happen is Eric Adams needs to call for the border to be closed, to be shut down, and he needs to call on the Biden administration to deport these people that are in New York City. He won't do that because it is not approved narrative. It's not approved progressive agenda talking points. So he is going to just beg for money and for money to be thrown at the problem. Speaking about immigration, Chicago last night, or no, let me double check the timeline here. This news just came in. It was their last meeting. I think it was on a Tuesday. No, Thursday. So Thursday, today is Tuesday. So this was last week. Mayor Brandon Johnson, his city council acolytes, and his allies used a maneuver to squash a referendum that would allow Chicago voters, black voters, to weigh in on whether or not Chicago should remain a sanctuary city. Now, it's not really calling for the elimination of a sanctuary city status entirely. What it does, it place limits on the sanctuary city status, and it says, hey, let's not spend $9,000 per immigrant. Let's not give them $9,000 each. Let's put a limiter on it. So this isn't completely eliminating the sanctuary city status. And what is crucial to understand here is that the city council, the Chicago City Council, is made up of like 50 Democrats. Maybe like of those 50, 3 of them are independents or something. No Republicans. So this Democrat brought forward this referendum. Mayor Brandon Johnson squashed it with his little posse, and really this disenfranchises. They talk about how voter ID is going to disenfranchise or suppress the black vote. This is an actual example of suppressing the black vote. Black voters do not want these illegal immigrants here getting paid $9,000 a month. I mean, these are stipends for them to get furniture, rent, to pay for food. And the black people do not like that. They don't like that. So now we've got this councilwoman, or I think it's a councilwoman. Let me double check here. But we've got a councilman out there, and Jesse Fuentes. Jesse Fuentes said this, we will be on a migrant mission. We will support our undocumented and migrant community. And we will continue to invest in our black communities. See, this is just people who want free stuff. And I'm sorry, black communities. I don't truly believe that there's a whole large community out there like that, but I do think that there are proportionally, and you can look at the statistics on this, members of the black community who use and abuse welfare at an alarming rate in comparison to other races. And it's probably because they're incentivized to do that via the Democrats. But this councilman says, hey, we're going to do both. We're going to do both. And we're not going to quote, this is the quote here, we're not going to, the Trump tactics of the right of sowing this division between our communities will end. So this is what the councilman is saying. Hey, there is a Trump tactic out there. These people are, they call you a conspiracy theorist. This is a conspiracy theorist. No, I think that the black people in those communities, they're sick and tired of their communities not being well funded, not having the police that should be there to get rid of the graffiti, to get rid of the crime in their communities. I think they're just sick of it. And then they hear on the news that they get $9,000, these Venezuelan migrants or these South American migrants, and they feel duped because they've supported the Democrats all this time. But anyway, so this is what the councilman says. The Trump tactics of the right of sowing division between our communities will end, and our vote today was an indication that there is a city council that will not allow these tactics to thrive here. So let me get this straight. The city council wants to support the undocumented who also don't have an ID by spending the hard-earned money of black communities by allowing them to by not allowing them to decide how the fruits of their labor will be spent, because that's all this was. It was saying, hey, black voters, really black voters, they should get a say in how much is spent on this sanctuary city status. But it's okay because the city council has both interests in mind, and it doesn't matter if the voters want their money spent on those other interests who are not even supposed to be here. Okay, so that's what it boils down to. We are going to be talking with Mike Coolidge here in just a little bit. Smash the like button if you're watching. Mm-mm-mm. Mhm. Mhm. Mm-mm-mm. Coming up Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about the Chicago City Council because there were some maneuvers that took place. Brandon Johnson, he and some of his little pals, his posse, they manipulated um, really this referendum. It was a proposed referendum, and it was championed by Alderman Anthony Beale. And there was some maneuvers that took place to squash this referendum. What did the referendum say? Well, really, what it was just a referendum that said, "Hey, voters should be able to weigh in on the Chicago sanctuary city status." It's not even like to get rid of the sanctuary status. It's just to put some limits on the sanctuary status. So the question that would have been on the ballot March 19th in the primary was this: should the city of Chicago limit its designation as a sanctuary status by placing spending limits on its public funding? Hey, should we be giving migrants $9,000 stipends? Should we be doing that as a sanctuary city? No, we probably should put some limits on this because my hard-earned vote or my hard-earned tax dollars are going to these immigrants, and it's hurting us. It's hurting our communities. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that. But first, I'm very excited to have Mike Coolidge on. If you've ever found yourself saying, "Man, Joe Biden's poll numbers look like a car wreck," did I share a video with you yesterday? I did talk about this. Do I have a video for you? This was amazing. It was on the streets of Delaware. I just found it super funny. I mean, the car just smashed into Biden's parked motorcade. He's fine, everybody. He was finishing up dinner with his caregiver, Dr. Jill Biden. And by the way, it's December 19th, and Jill has yet to be brought up on charges for elder abuse. But anyway, there was Biden headquarters. They were parked outside, and then all of a sudden, his parked motorcade, gets smashed by this one car. And man, and it was right after a reporter had asked Biden about his poll numbers. And I just was like, Joe Biden's poll numbers are a car wreck. It was just a perfectly timed response to that reporter's question. Hey, Joe, why are you doing so bad in the polls? And he goes, well, that's not the right polls. You're not looking at the right polls. So Mike Coolidge joining me here, lifelong conservative, Ogle County Republican chair. Mike, how you doing this morning? Let's talk about Biden's polls. They're a dumpster fire. They're a car wreck.
They're a car wreck. They're terrible. And I had just texted you when you had mentioned that. I mean, literally seconds ago. I actually, believe it or not, drove in the Trump motorcade in 2019 from a weird confluence of things. They asked a small group of people to, like trustworthy people, while Trump was in Illinois, in Chicago specifically, to be a part of the motorcade and like drive some of the vehicles in it. And I got to do that. And it is so insane how the whole world of that motorcade is controlled around it, and driving through Chicago with every single light green, every single road cleared. And that, I don't know, there's so much security around that. I don't want to throw the secrets under the bus here, but to have that happen I'm someone's got to get fired or at least reprimanded for that.
Yeah, well, it is
this thing
weird
yesterday.
because it's being very hush hush because they're not even really talking about the guy who crashed into the motorcade. I mean, I saw pictures of him, but they're not really getting to the heart of the issue where, hey, was he drunk? Was he, what
Yeah, what
happened?
happened here? Yeah,
Yeah,
where's the
I mean,
curiosity from journalists? I mean, and you can apply that curiosity thing to so many things that journalism, big media right now is not covering, not following up about any of the Hunter Biden stuff, not following up at all about Joe Biden just constantly lying about his immediate reaction. You're reading the polls wrong. Like, well, are we though? No, Joe Biden is at the absolute lowest of his presidency, and I know so many of us on the right might look at that and say, "Wow, it's in the bag." President Trump should be measuring the drapes of his second term right now. We absolutely cannot get complacent about that and forget about if the American people are absolutely behind removing, from office and putting Trump back in. That I am confident, is reality. But you cannot get complacent that the media and the left are just going to sit on their hands and say, "Oh, well, we lost the argument. Biden, he's right. He's old. I guess we should think about who we're going to put up for president in 2028. No, they are insanely petrified of Trump getting back into office. And we have to do everything, and I mean everything in our power to make sure that they can't do the same shenanigans that they did in 2020. Because they're going to try, and they're going to try things that we're not even thinking about right now. And we absolutely have to keep our foot to the pedal.
well, and I love what what they're doing, Judicial Watch, and I don't know if you've heard anything about this here in the state of Illinois, but they have actually sent a notice letter to the Illinois State Board of Elections. And they said, hey, y'all better get these inactive voters. So there's this whole process, and it's amazing. And it's very convoluted and complicated. But county clerks and election authorities, what they've got to do is they've got to make sure that these people are at their addresses that they say they're registered at. So what you do, you send 2 postcards, and the voter at that address is supposed to send you yep, I'm still here at this address. Although I haven't voted in 10 plus years, I'm still here at this address and I'm still registered to vote, essentially. Now, if you don't get those postcards back from the voter saying, yes, I'm at this address and yes, I am planning to vote, I just haven't voted in a while. If you don't get those postcards back, then what you have to do is double check, make sure that person did not vote in the last 2 federal elections, and then you take them off. You take them off the registration because they are an inactive voter. This is a federal law, National Voter Registration Act, that keeps the rolls clean. And that is a big area where I think there is nefarious activity going on, where people will say, oh, well, there's, 800,000, and this is the number, Judicial Watch's number, inactive voters in Illinois. I'm going to request a vote by mail ballot for Jack Smith, who hasn't voted in 10 years, and I'm going to vote as Jack Smith. And there is no, voter verification. I'm going to send my ballot in his name, and they're going to, he's an inactive voter, but he's not registered as an inactive voter, or he wasn't taken off the voter registration. So Jack Smith can still vote, even though he hasn't voted in 10 years, and he probably isn't at that address. Maybe he moved to, California and live in Illinois anymore. So I really hope that we continue to fight and we don't get complacent. And I'm hoping that the Republican Party works with a lot of these election integrity groups.
Yes.
That get these inactive voters off of the rolls. That's step number 1. If we've got 800,000 inactive voters here in the state of Illinois, if that's legit, there is no election. I mean, that's unacceptable.
Is the absolute most important thing, and this is how the Democrats have been more successful than Republicans in the last half decade for sure, on is you know there's this Stephen Covey mentality and the military mentality. You start with the end in mind and work backwards. Well, the end in politics, as far as elections go, obviously is voting, and then work backwards from that. You forget about convincing people that your policies and your opinions are smart about something. I mean, that's important, but you have to start with voting first and work backwards. And that's what Democrats have given up completely on the whole. We have to convince people of our arguments. They don't even think they need to do that anymore. As long as they have their voting apparatuses good to go, that's all that matters. And if they win the elections, they're going to implement their policies, whether the people believe in them or not. So yes, there are a lot of things going on, tons of things going on. I know right now, or I think it just ended, or it might still be going on, but the America, I think I forget the name of it, but the Turning Point USA summit in Phoenix, I know, is focusing a lot on this. I know Scott Pressler has this whole army of people who are focusing on this. Different Republican parties in different states and county Republican parties in many states, and mine included, are doing absolutely everything we can to make sure things are on the up and up at the local level. Because again, that's where it starts. And you're going to see a movement next year, and I'm going to be a part of it. I'm going to say it now. I'll say it a million times, especially in the general election. For the first time in my life, I'm going to vote early and bank my vote. The primary, I might do it a little bit closer to actual election time, but as far as local races go, I need a little bit more time to decide who I'm going to vote for in the primary. For the president, I'm definitely voting for Trump. But in other ones, I want the campaign to go out. But for the general election, if you're 100% going to vote for Trump for president, and you're local Republican in different elected office, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to wait till election day to do it. And Democrats know this. They figured it out with all the stupid early mail-in vote stuff. And frankly, I want eventually for us to not have early voting. I want eventually for us to not have this mail-in voting. But in order to change those laws, we need to win the elections. So in order to do that, we've got to vote early in the general election, especially because then resources can be spent on the people who haven't voted yet. And I know this from running for office. There's so much science and data that goes into whether or not the people who are going to vote for you have voted yet. And if they're just sitting there waiting to vote till election day and you don't know whether they voted or not yet, your opponent has an advantage over you because they have already gotten their voters to vote. And so that's why you have to vote early in the general election, especially if you 100% know. So we need to, and wide, you're already seeing everyone is kind of on the same page about that, because the arguments for waiting till election day to vote in the general in this climate are they don't exist. We absolutely have to do that. And then we usually over time, if we get the right people in office, of course, can these voting laws straight. And we should all be voting on election day and getting our window of time where we vote down to 24 hours, maybe 48 hours max, and no mail-in voting at all, except for military overseas. That's ideally what we need to get to. But until we get people in office who will enact those laws, we have to use the rules that we have and beat the Democrats at their game, because right now they have the advantage over us in the whole voting system stuff.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, and we got to take a quick break, but one thing I wanted to add was, they've got their voting apparatus down pat, the Democrats do. And now we're beginning to see them move on from the voting apparatus and the media, controlling the media, and they've got it down to a science. So, this TikTok, the short minute clips, they don't have to have good content. They don't have to have good messaging. All they need is to get that 10 seconds of dopamine hit, either to make you angry or to evoke some sort of emotional response. And the Democrats have figured this out in their media platforms, and they are controlling the media to a point where people are fed what they want, and this is what has been going on for years. And I think they've already been, this is not their next move, but this has been their move for this is why you've got this massive think tank where you tell somebody, oh yeah, no, a myocarditis, That's something that young men get if they take the vaccination, and then they're like, "Wait, what? What is mitochondritis?" They live in these echo chambers, and it's not because they're good at content or people believe in that content. It's because they've got the science down to figure out how to get people to adopt these ideologies via the media. So they have been able to convince people that Ron DeSantis, for example, I had a hairdresser and she's a black woman, and she was convinced that Ron DeSantis is all about corporate guys and he hates the working class, and she was convinced of that. And then in the same breath, she tells me that why does he hate Disney so much? So wait a second, what one is it? Does he hate the working class or does he hate corporations like Disney? Because she's like, well, why does he hate Disney so much? So she didn't even really understand how those two ideas were conflicting with each other. How can he be against the working class if he's against also Disney? Do you not realize that they're a major corporation and he's making them pay their fair share in taxes because they've had this massive tax break for as long as I've been alive? Yeah, she had two conflicting ideas, and she didn't even realize that they conflicted each other because she's been fed just these quick headlines. And yeah,
Was she
so
millennial, Gen Z, or Gen X? Do you remember? Or do you
Gen
know how old
Gen
she is?
X. She's probably Gen X.
Yeah. Okay.
Not
Yeah.
boomer,
I mean,
Gen X.
your generation consumes a lot more of the TikTok and the Snapchat world than the Gen X does, but still, there's so many people who are completely sheltered from some stories that absolutely would change people's minds about things. I mean, all of this migrant craziness. I mean, it's a good thing that cities have to talk about this now, and so much of that has to do with governors who've made smart decisions about shipping them to illegal migrants, shipping them to cities where these sanctuary cities exist. And DeSantis and the governor of Texas were torchbearers in that, and that should definitely be acknowledged.
Mm-hmm. Mike Coolidge, thank you so much for joining me. I so do appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Patriot
won't be
Plug-
around. Yeah, I won't be around next week, but I'll see you in 2024, and it's going to get really exciting in the new year because we're going to get right into the Iowa caucuses and then New Hampshire primary, and then off we go to election 2024. So have a Merry Christmas season to all of your awesome listeners, and a Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year, Mike Coolidge. He's the best, folks. Go find him on Twitter. That's Coolidge, Koolidge. Mike Coolidge joins me every Tuesday morning for Patriot Power Plug. We're going to be back on the other side in just about 5 minutes talking about Portland, Oregon, and how they're having robots patrol the streets now because they defunded the police so badly. That's next. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We're coming back in just a little bit, and we're going to be chatting about Rob. Rob is Portland's security robot. It's an autonomous security robot, and it offers 24/7 surveillance. And it's actually patrolling a parking garage in downtown Portland. Uh, so we're going to be chatting about that because they defunded the police so badly there in Portland that now they're it turns out that they've got to have robot cops. So you've got fewer cops. Now we have elected officials having to pretend to give a damn about the people there. And now they've got a security robot there patrolling downtown Portland. We're also going to chat about the city council. In Chicago, they rejected this bid to ask voters to weigh in on Chicago's sanctuary status. So this was a referendum. It was a proposed referendum by Anthony Beale. Anthony Beale is a Democrat. And really what the referendum was, hey, it was a proposed referendum. It was, hey, should we be limiting our spending when it comes to these illegal immigrants? Because we're sanctuary status. It's not really even eliminating the sanctuary status, but rather it's a let's put a limit on the sanctuary status. Let's put a limit on how much we spend on these guys. So that's what we're going to be talking about next here on the Buzz. Tis the season for joy and celebration. Fa la 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 la. But there is also room for mishaps. Yes, mishaps. Christmas disasters. What are some of the most common Christmas disasters? Well, the most common one is burning the turkey. Do not burn the turkey, ham, roast, or whatever the main course is. I love prime rib. I might actually petition my mom to make prime rib this year. I'm not much of a turkey person. I think it's too dry. I like prime rib. That's pretty good. But it's expensive. It's very expensive. But some other Christmas disasters include running out of wrapping paper. Yeah, that sucks. Christmas lights blowing a fuse. Yes. You plug in the Christmas tree. That's happened a couple of times where you plug in the Christmas tree and none of the lights work because one of the bulbs blew a fuse. Having to cook when hungover. Has that ever happened to you? Arguments over politics at the dinner table. That doesn't happen in my family, but it might happen in yours. Forgetting to bring presents as a guest. That doesn't happen. That'd be a disaster. That's never happened to me. I'm usually a guest at some Christmases, and I've never forgot a gift. Now this year, because by inflation, unfortunately, me being the guest, I'm only doing like one, maybe two Christmas gifts per person this year because I can't give them all what they want because Biden. Not putting name tags on the gifts or forgetting what is for who. So that has happened a couple of times. My parents, when I was growing up, they'd be like sleeping, wrapping the gifts and they'd forget to put the name tags on. So we'd be like, who's this for? Not having enough seating. Not having enough seating could be a problem too. That could be a disaster. Not having enough plates to serve the dinner to all the guests. Another thing I wanted to bring up today was eggnog. How many eggnogs are you going to drink this holiday season? I'm so excited for Christmas. Can you tell? A survey found that the average American drinks 6 spiced eggnogs. Now, we don't do eggnog at my house. We do hot spiced wine. It's very good. And I love wine. I like wine and whiskey. But it's an estimated 1.2 billion eggnogs nationally. So 1.2 billion eggnogs nationally will be drank this year. Now, the number is a lot higher in Vermont for some odd reason, because I guess they like their eggnog so much that people there have an average of 19 cups of eggnog during the holiday season there in Vermont. So I don't know when the acceptable drinking time is on the holidays. The acceptable time to start drinking over the holidays, to a lot of these people who responded to the survey, they said that 2:42 p.m. That is acceptable, but 18 admitted that they actually start before lunchtime. To deal with the family, maybe you got to drink a little bit before. But North Dakota is ranked as the drunkest state during the festive season because with an average of 8 boozy drinks per person or per day per person. So 8 drinks a day. Wow. North Dakota, the drunkest state. The morning after 4th of July, Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, St. Patrick's Day, and Thanksgiving are notably prone to hangovers, with January 1st being the peak day for hangovers. So there's a couple of little Christmas notes. Eggnog. A lot of people drink eggnog. We don't do eggnog. And do you drink eggnog? Let me know in the comments section. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Do have to take a quick break. I am going to get to this robot story. Robots are securing downtown, or it's a security robot, and they are patrolling the downtown area in Portland. Plus, I want to get to the city council rejecting this bid to ask voters to weigh in on Chicago's sanctuary city status. This wasn't even really like eliminating Chicago's sanctuary status. This was a referendum that Brandon Johnson and his little acolytes and his allies squashed before they could even discuss it. So I'm going to talk about that. Plus, Vivek Ramaswamy telling CNN's Van Jones, to shut the fudge up. That's actually quite literally what I mean, the other word. But Vivek Ramaswamy got on a microphone at America Fest and said that. And then plus, I do want to get to Eric Adams. He admits that the Biden administration is not helping New York City when it comes to the illegal immigrant crisis. So much to get to today on The Buzz. It's cold out there. It's very cold. I've got multiple layers on. Very, very, very cold this morning. It was like 14 degrees this morning. It might get up a little bit higher, but not much. 7:34 a.m. I'm back in just a couple of minutes. Good morning, folks. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're going to be back in just a little bit. One thing I wanted to bring up, Bob, the Illinois GOP. Okay, the Illinois GOP, yes, is lazy and apathetic. But one thing that I want to kind of note about the GOP and about Republicans just in general and why they're not so great at the voting apparatus as Democrats are. The reason why Republicans aren't great at it is because Republicans do politics as a side gig. Okay, Democrats, they live for politics. It's like they're God. Okay, Republicans typically are Christians, conservatives. They have families. They prioritize a little differently than Democrats do. Democrats have no other reason to live other than politics. Okay, that's really what that is all about. How they have gotten to this point. They live for politics. Now we Republicans. We don't live for politics. We've got families, we've got God, we've got some other things that we prioritize over politics. Democrats do not have that stuff, so they can prioritize politics and their ideology and their policies that push that ideology. And we, as Republicans, we try to err on the side of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right? And we have really shot ourselves in the foot because the Democrats are not like that. They could give a damn about freedom of speech. They care about, because they live for their political ideology. That is their life. Because they live for it, they could give a damn about, how it infringes on you, on mine, on our rights to freedom or to speak and to practice religion in a certain way. So when it boils down to it, it's really just an absence of having a higher power in control of your life. I really do believe that. Democrats, they don't have anything to look forward to. I mean, they are the party that is anti-family. They are the party of anti-God, anti-values, right? And the reason why is because they prioritize everything but that kind of stuff. Do have to take a break. Go ahead, smash that like button. We'll be back. I love this text. My dad passed away 10 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that. That's so sad. And he's been mailed a ballot to my mom's house for the last 10 years. Okay, so he's been dead 10 years, and he still mailed a ballot to my mom's house. Can't somebody check the obituaries and see that he's passed and does not need a ballot? Well, you're exactly right. I had to ask, what election authority is this? This is Livingston County. You need to call your Livingston County clerk or your election authority and get them to send postcards. So there's a process for that, for dead voters, for people who die. There's a process. They should be checking the obits to make sure, and you can cross-reference the obits with the voter roll. But you should be sending a postcard. If you're an election authority, you should send 2 postcards to an address to see if that person is still at that address. Then you should also, if that person does not respond to those postcards and let you know that they're still at that address, the election authority then has to verify that you have not voted in the last 2 federal election cycles. And from there, there's 3 steps. You send 2 postcards, you check and see if they are still voting in these federal elections. If they haven't voted in the last 2, then you take them off the voter roll. Take them off. Judicial Watch, they estimated like 800,000 people are on the Illinois voter rolls. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And here's the thing, that makes it easy, very easy for nefarious people to come in and to use those inactive voters and request a vote by mail ballot in their name and to vote in their name. And you'd never know. You'd never know. So we need to clean up the rolls. That's step number 1. GOP is lazy and apathetic. You guys can text me and we can talk about your comments, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Bob, he says that the Illinois GOP is lazy and apathetic. That I agree with. But GOP people, Republicans in general, here's the problem. The reason why we haven't been able to perfect the voting apparatus like the Democrats have, they get it. They get the vote by mail. They get the early voting. They've got it down to a science of how to get people out to vote. They don't take time. Their policies suck. Okay, their people suck. Look no further than the Senate Democrat staffer who was engaging in an activity in the judicial hearing committee room. Okay, the judicial hearing committee room. He was taking part in an activity. I don't think I need to go into detail, but the Democrats, they're terrible people. They're indecent people. Here's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. Democrats live for politics. Republicans do politics as a side gig. That's the thing. That I do Republican. I do Republican activities as a side gig. I do conservative things as a side gig. What comes first is God and my family, and I prioritize differently. Okay, and that's why Republicans are where they're at, because we've prioritized those things over Democrats. Democrats don't have those things. They don't have families. They're the party of anti-family. They're the anti-God party. And that's why they're able to focus so much on this voting process and early voting and vote by mails. That's why they're able to focus on honing in on this voting apparatus and perfecting it. So glad that you guys are commenting. You guys can always see me live in the studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I do want to get to this story. Portland, Oregon. The elected officials there who once let anarchy take over Portland, Oregon for nearly 200 days. I'm talking about the Antifa BLM riots that took place over the summer of 2020. The elected officials who let anarchy run amok, and then they've also contributed to the downtown area there becoming really a zombie apocalypse. I told you guys that. And it's not just in Portland, okay? There's a small community, Lincoln, Illinois. I walked into a place and saw Narcan was in the vending machines. You can literally like type in a number and then it spits out Narcan. That's where we're at when it comes to society and the drug problem, where you can get Narcan out of a vending machine. So the zombie apocalypse in downtown area, like quite literally, people are bent over themselves and shuffling because they're so high on fentanyl. These elected officials who let the anarchy happen, who let the zombie apocalypse happen, they're now utilizing what's called security robots because it turns out when you constantly bash and defund cops, you get fewer cops. And when you get fewer cops, you as the elected official, you have to answer to that. And then you have to pretend to give a crap. So hence the security robot who is now patrolling the downtown area of Portland. So Portland city officials and their community improvement partners gathered last week to unveil this new mural. So the new mural was created in hopes to revitalize and elevate the area and bring back a sense of community. What was once known as the epicenter of defund the police movement. This is the epicenter of the defund the police movement. That's Portland. I think what was it? Chaz? It might have been Chaz. Maybe that was Seattle. But there was an autonomous zone really where in Portland. And I mean, what was once known as this epicenter of defund the police, they're focusing on bringing back a sense of community. This is why they built this new mural. The lack of self-awareness is infuriating to me. City officials destroyed the last bit of community by vilifying police, by not prosecuting criminals, and by letting anarchy take over. It's not only comical that they're now pretending to care, but it's also baffling that they think people will buy this crap. Quote, along with support from the city, Portland Clean and Safe, which is a department, I guess, cleaned sidewalks, removed graffiti, and they picked up trash daily. So this is Portland Clean and Safe. It's a department. They're cleaning up the graffiti. They said that they worked with law enforcement and noted a significant decrease in crime over the year. So this year they've noticed a 50% decrease. This is according to Mark Wells of the Portland Clean and Safe department. Like I said, he said we took a look at assault, vandalism, and theft, and we saw a 50% decrease. Crime doesn't thrive in areas that are vibrant and full of people walking around, eating at restaurants, enjoying the amenities downtown. Now, to help guard the area, they have a new thing. It's called Rob. Rob is Portland's first autonomous security robot who is doing 24/7 surveillance in this parking garage in the downtown area. Officials think Rob is actually better than a human because he does not get cold and he doesn't get tired. So he interacts like a human, this robot, because there's a human on the other side of it. If you stop and speak to the robot, you know that there's someone on the other side who's answering your questions, who can give you directions, or even tell you, quote, happy holidays. That's from the Unico Properties director. So let's play this clip for you. This is a little bit more about the robot and what he does. Let's take a listen.
The area is Rob, Portland's first autonomous security robot, utilizing 360-degree 24/7 surveillance to patrol Big Pink's parking garage. Unico says this is just another way to use technology to improve their security program.
He won't himself do anything except stop and record footage.
Rob may not be able to call 911, but he has thermal imaging and a two-way intercom.
It's like interacting with a human because there is a human on the other side. If you stop and speak to the robot, you know that there's someone on the other side who's answering your questions and can give you directions, can tell you happy holidays.
Big Pink's security system already includes more than 200 cameras, but Unico says Rob will be hardworking, low maintenance, and an asset to the security team.
This is easier than staffing security, so because he doesn't get tired, he doesn't get cold.
Reporting in Southwest Portland, Paulina.
So there you have it. Robots. So Portland's minimum wage is around $15 an hour, depending on where you work. Essentially, this robot is cheaper than paying an actual human. Robots do not get paid to begin with. They don't get sick or they don't go and do vacations, and they're programmed to do exactly what is demanded. So while progressives pretend to care about the little guy and demand greedy business owners pay employees $15 an hour, subsequently, they may soon end up without a job. Okay, the little guy is going to end up without a job. Okay, this is why I've been saying be careful what you wish for. These progressives, they don't care about you. They are so willing to get rid of your job that they will replace you with a robot. You never know what you're going to get until what you've got until it's gone. and progressives will take everything from you. And this is just example number one with Mr. Rob here. He's the security robot. So what a weird coincidence that we had lockdowns during the the pandemic, followed by the defund the police movement, and now robocops are surveilling areas. This is the new normal progressives kept demanding we accept. Well, this is our new normal. This is our new normal. It's a new normal. Or is this all just a weird coincidence? I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird coincidence that we were locked down during the pandemic. And they tried to figure out, I think, when we were locked down, if they could do jobs without us. They could do the jobs without us. And then they defunded the police. Yeah, I don't know. This is a weird coincidence. But I've got to take a break. We're going to be back talking about Eric Adams. The Democrats, they underestimated the impact of illegal immigration and the impact that it has on their cities. And they warned New Yorkers to brace for an extremely painful budget cut. So I'm going to be chatting a little bit about that, plus Chicago City Council. That's next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back in a couple of minutes. Let me get to GOP needs to act like they are fighting a war. True. What are we fighting for? So it has nothing to do with the cops. It's capitalism. I love it. Actually, no, it's really like it's not really capitalism. In that, I mean, you are literally taking out human beings. Capitalism thrives and functions on humans. It's not really capitalism if you can't build yourself up. The guy making $15 an hour, this is the whole idea of capitalism. You work your way up in a job, and then eventually you've got the 2.2 kids and the house. Like, that's the American dream. That's capitalism. But here we have it. They're just completely eliminating humans. And that's clear by their defund the police movement. They don't want crime, rampant crime, homicides probably are up. They didn't include homicides with that 50% decrease. So we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. head on over to cities929.com and register for your call today. So Santa is going to be making some phone calls, some personalized calls. He is going to randomly select children this Christmas season. All you have to do if you want your kid to get a phone call from Santa, he comes into studio every year, and I always try to get him the cookies. He didn't like my cookies the last time I made them for him, but I'm hoping this time he'll like them and he won't throw them back at my face. I'm just kidding. Santa doesn't do that. But Santa, he's going to be making phone calls to children all throughout Bloomington Normal. Register your child today to receive that phone call at cities929.com. Cities 92.9 and Tax and Accounting Plus. We're bringing the magic of Christmas to Bloomington Normal children and everywhere. I mean, if you're from Colfax, if you're from Leroy, register today at cities929.com. St. Nick is going to be making some personalized phone calls to randomly selected children this Christmas season. Fill out the form on our website, that's cities929.com. I'll be back for the 8 o'clock hour. This is The Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We're going to be coming back talking about the Chicago City Council. There was this referendum, and Brandon Johnson and his little posse, they shut it down. They shut down this referendum before it could even really be considered. They were supposed to talk about it for about an hour, but they didn't even allow for that. So, what was the referendum? Simply what it was allowing Chicago voters to have a say when it came to the sanctuary city status. And it wasn't even really eliminating the status. It was putting limits on the status, saying, hey, let's not send $9,000 each to each immigrant here in the city of Chicago. Let's put a spending limit on this because it's my hard earned money. These people don't even have an ID. And we're spending all this money on these people who have no vested interest here in the city. I'm a voter of Chicago, and I should be able to say how much money we spend on these immigrants. It wasn't even saying any money, like it wasn't removing the sanctuary status at all. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that. Smash the like button if you're watching. Share this out with your friends. Share this video out right now, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 99. I'm going to start with this city council, the Chicago City Council, because they rejected this bid to ask voters to weigh in on Chicago's sanctuary status. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's 8:05 a.m. It's 15 degrees. It's cold out there, folks. Grab a blanket, grab a cup of cocoa, and let's sit. Let's have a conversation about what happened in Chicago last week. So, for quite some time, people on the left have been screaming that voter ID is racist and that it is subsequently targeting Black voters to disenfranchise their vote because leftists truly believe that Black voters are too incompetent to get an ID. Okay, so we understand that about the left. They hate voter ID. They say that it disenfranchises the Black vote. Although the left pretends to care about these voters, they will only keep that charade up if it benefits them in their insane causes. Okay. So they only keep that charade up because it benefits them in their insane causes and they can get the Black vote. And they pretend to care about these voters in Chicago, these Black voters. That's why elected officials in Chicago just decided, I guess, that the voters are not allowed to decide if they want their tax dollars to be wasted on people who are not even supposed to be here. So Black voters in Chicago are not happy with the illegal immigrants. They just aren't. They're not happy about it. And they will not be allowed to decide if their tax dollars should be spent on their children in their communities or if it should be wasted on other people's children. So the Chicago City Council, it's made up of about 50 people, or 50 people, 50 city councilmen, and no Republicans. There hasn't been a Republican in Chicago since like the 1930s. I think the last Republican mayor was in 1938. Don't quote me on that, but in the 1930s. Okay, so the city council, they rejected this referendum. And really what it was bid to ask voters to weigh in on Chicago's sanctuary status, but not to eliminate it entirely, just to weigh in on how much we actually spend when it comes to these immigrants. Are we going to give them $9,000 stipends, or should we put a limit on it? So according to the Chicago Sun-Times, Brandon Johnson and his Chicago City Council acolytes, his allies, they did this maneuver, and really what they did, they squashed this referendum that would have allowed Chicago voters to weigh in on whether or not Chicago should remain a sanctuary city. This is where Chicago Sun-Times got it wrong. That's not true. It wasn't really a referendum to decide whether or not Chicago should remain a sanctuary city, but rather it was just it was this question. So this would have been on the March 19th ballot, the primary. This ballot would have had the question: should the city of Chicago limit its designation as a sanctuary city by placing spending limits on its public funding. Should we be giving illegals $9,000 each in the city of Chicago, or should we limit that a bit? Should we give them like $2,000 each? That's what this question is really all about. Who was it proposed by? Well, the champion of this referendum, Anthony Beale, who is a Democrat. So what Johnson did, this little maneuver, because he's shady, he said, oh, well, in order to get us to even consider the referendum or to talk about the referendum, you're going to need 2/3 vote. So you need 33 alderpersons for this measure to even be considered, because it has not been approved by the Rules Committee. So they did this maneuver to squash this referendum before it even got heard. So the vote was 31-16, which doomed Anthony Beale's bid here. Like I said, the proposed referendum was not, sorry, sometimes you got it wrong. It was not whether or not Chicago should remain a sanctuary city. It's, hey, we should be putting some limitations on this sanctuary city status, which we shouldn't be giving free stuff to these people who don't even have voter ID. One of the worst parts about all of this is that the city council could not even be bothered to care about this for an hour. Okay, it would have taken an hour for them to sit an hour out of their day to sit down and discuss the referendum. But they didn't even want to do that. Brandon Johnson and his little posse, they squashed it before it could even be talked about for an hour. So what a weird coincidence. The very same people who do not require voter ID because they believe it's suppression also want to waste tax dollars on the so-called suppressed voters. The tax dollars of the so-called suppressed voters, the black vote, right? They want to waste the black vote, tax dollars on things that absolutely do not benefit them. And quite frankly, it hurts them and their communities. You spend $9,000 of these hard-earned tax dollar money of the black community on these immigrants who do not even have an ID. They don't even have an ID. It's also a weird coincidence that one of the same places that does not believe in voter ID also has also opened up the floodgates to everyone and their grandmas, and seems to be incentivizing more and more people to come who won't have those oppressive IDs. So they're against voter ID, but they're also the same people who incentivize people to come there without IDs. Why do you think they're incentivizing people to come there who won't have an ID? They're non-citizens. They won't have an ID like mine because I'm a US citizen, okay? They just won't. This is why they're against voter ID. It's not that they think, well, they do. They think that black people can't get an ID, or at least that's how they pitch it. They try to say that it's voter suppression if you mandate voter ID. The same people who say, oh, no, we're not going to have voter ID here, they incentivize everybody and their grandmas to come here who don't have these oppressive IDs. So here we go. This is Jesse Fuentes. Jesse Fuentes, he says this, or she, I got to look up this alderman. I don't know the Chicago alderman so much, but this is a leftist. And he says, we will be on the migrant mission. We will support our undocumented and migrant community. We will continue to invest in our black communities, and we will continue to invest in our black communities. Then he goes on, he says, the Trump tactics of the right of sowing division between our communities will end. And our vote today was an indication that they're here in this city and this city council, we will not allow those tactics to thrive. So let's get this straight. The city council wants to support the undocumented who also don't have an ID by spending the hard-earned money of black communities by not allowing them to decide how the fruits of their labor will be spent, because that's all the question was. All the question was, hey, we should limit the sanctuary status so that way we don't spend $9,000 each on one of these migrants. And these migrants got $9,000 each. Plus they got furniture and housing and things like that. We need a limit on it because we want to have a decision. We want to decide how our fruits of our labor, how the fruits of our labor will be spent. But it's okay because the council has both interests in mind, and it doesn't matter if voters don't want their money being spent on those other interests who are not even supposed to be there. They're not even supposed to be there in the city. But these black voters are getting shafted because their hard tax dollars are going towards things that they don't really care about. Why? Why would I care about this immigrant whose child, that $9,000? We're really going to give $9,000 to somebody I don't know, and he shouldn't even be here. He came here illegally. He crossed the border. Yeah, sounds like, I don't know, a bit of a stretch to me for this councilman, Jesse Fuentes, to say, oh, yeah, we're going to be there for both people. Are you? Because these people don't have an ID, these undocumented people, and you're spending the hard-earned money of these black communities, and you're not even allowing them a say in how to spend their money. They're not even saying down with the sanctuary city status. They're not saying that. What they're saying is, we don't want to spend $9,000 per immigrant. We want to spend a little less. I know Chicago has a lot of crazy progressive laws and local ordinances, but I think it is at least pretty clear that it's not the job of the elected officials to support citizens of other countries. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. We shouldn't be supporting these individuals of other countries, Venezuelans, you name it, Romanians. And I don't see how it's a Trump tactic. He says it's a Trump tactic and that we're sowing some sort of division between the black community and the immigrant community. People tend to go straight to insults when they don't have much to back up their indefensible arguments, by the way. So they'll say, it's a Trump tactic. You're sowing division. All that said, this is true voter suppression. Voter ID is not voter suppression. Black people can get, again, they have IDs. Okay. That is not voter suppression. This is voter suppression. You didn't even let the referendum breathe. You squashed it before you even talked about it. And it was a referendum that didn't eliminate the sanctuary status of Chicago, but rather just put some limits on it. Hey, let's not spend $9,000. Let's spend maybe $2,000, maybe $3,000 per immigrant. But yeah, this is obvious. It's an obvious move to disenfranchise the black voter. I'm just so sick of it. Democrats think that they're entitled to the black vote, and this is what they do to black voters. They suppress their vote. This is what Johnson did. He didn't even let it breathe. He didn't even let it come to a vote. Or he didn't even let it be talked about. The older people voted on it because he said, oh, you need 2/3 to even consider it. All right, I do have to shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about Eric Adams, the immigration issue. Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, he said he underestimated the impact that illegal immigration has on their city. And he warned New Yorkers to brace themselves for a painful budget cut. Okay, because they have to pay back the debt they've created, and they have to cut the budget a lot. So we're going to chat about it. I got to take a quick break, but when you come back, we're going to talk about Eric Adams. Then I do want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy because he totally just obliterated Van Jones. He said, shut the fudge up, Van Jones. It's CNN. It's Van Jones. Do you know who Van Jones is? Today's show gets into that a little bit. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. morning. How are you? Go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to get to Eric Adams admitting President Joe Biden's administration will not help with the New York City illegal immigrants. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that. Plus, Vivek Ramaswamy told CNN's Van Jones to shut the fudge up on Sunday. So today's show gets into a little bit of that. But Eric Adams admitting that the Biden administration is not helping him. The only way that this problem ceases to exist is if we deport people and if we close that southern border and we build the border wall. And that's the only way this works. And yeah, so Eric Adams, he says that we underestimated the impact. He says New Yorkers have to brace for a very painful budget cut. So these New Yorkers are going to suffer. So I talked about the black voters in Chicago. They're suffering. The voters of Chicago, they're suffering because they don't get a say in how much is spent on illegals. This was a referendum that Brandon Johnson just squashed, but now New Yorkers are kind of dealing with the same thing. So we're going to chat about Eric Adams here and the budget cuts. Here we go. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's real simple. It's Kat Peterson 929. The number 9, the number 2, the number 9. Subscribe to my YouTube channel today. Support our seniors. Now, this is something that we started back in 2020, I believe, during the pandemic, because a lot of our elderly, our seniors, they were staying in these long-term care facilities and they suffered from loneliness because nobody was able to come see them, and they're suffering from loneliness in there, and they are especially suffering around the holidays. And we just try to brighten the days of these folks. We try to brighten the days of these folks. And this Christmas season, we've teamed up with the McLean County Nursing Home, and we want to bring the residents there some music, some tunes, but we also want to bring them your donations. You can drop off your donations at Great Plains Media. Now, there's an entire wish list at our website, that's cities99.com. Personal care items, that's something that they really need. Some combs, body washes, aftershave, body spray, lotion, Old Spice, Axe, Bath and Body Works type stuff, but also men and women's non-slip slippers, sizes 7 to 11 or 7 to 12. Men and women non-slip socks. They like the slippers, the socks, the flannel shirts, keep them warm. Women's sweaters. We can also do crossword puzzles, word search books, things like that to keep them busy. And we also accept monetary donations at cities929.com. You can do that there at cities929.com, make a monetary donation. But we are accepting donations. You bring them here to Great Plains Media. It's 108 Boykins Place in Normal, Illinois, during our normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm sorry, I'm not coming in at 11 p.m. to grab your grab your donations. But 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. somebody will be here, and you can drop off your donations in a little box that we've got out right out front until December 21st. So do that by September 21st. I would recommend getting it all in by today and tomorrow, but those donations, we're still taking them. So go ahead, go to cities929.com to either make a monetary donation or for the complete list, there's a printable wish list on our website. So you can download that and print it out and go shopping for our seniors in long-term care facilities. So we're going to be actually headed to the McLean County Nursing Home, and we're going to be playing some music, some games, and then we allow we have the residents come up and decide what they need as far as donations go. So yeah, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Eric Adams. He's the New York city mayor, and he's actually had quite a bit of sexual allegations against him. It's probably because he's speaking out against the progressive agenda, the narrative, the approved talking points. But he's not happy about the illegal immigration. He says that Democrats have underestimated the impact illegal immigration has on cities, on their cities, and he's warning New Yorkers to brace for some extremely painful budget cuts. So Let's take a listen to Eric Adams and what he had to say about illegal immigration in New York City. You won't believe how many immigrants are actually there. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
When you look at the highs and lows, right? Can you describe one high and one low for 2023?
The high, we have more private sector jobs in the history of the city. It shows a real healthy movement towards our city coming back. And the low is clearly 150,000 migrant asylum seekers that really put a real bump in the road of our recovery effort in the city.
When you look at the highs and lows, right?
So there you have it. He says the low is 150,000 migrants and asylum seekers. That's his terminology. And as I said, international law is very specific about asylum seekers. A lot of these people coming over are going to Spain first, or they're going to other countries first, and then they're flying into America. When you're an asylum seeker, you have to seek asylum in the first country. First, you have to be coming from an oppressive government or some sort of war-torn country. And you have to have been coming from an oppressive government, fleeing things like communism. And then you seek asylum in America, but you can't go to like 7 different countries and say you're an asylum seeker, because international law says you should have sought asylum in the first country that was safe. Eric Adams, he says that they're going to be taking a big hit, New Yorkers, because there's budget cuts in regards to the impact of illegal immigrants on the system. Adams, he admits that they underestimated how it impacts the system, how it impacts the finances here. And then he even admits that Joe Biden and the administration is not helping him. I'm telling you, Eric Adams is starting to sound really, really based lately. He's starting to sound like a Republican. Here's the thing that Eric Adams refuses to say. He refuses to say we need to deport these people and we need to close that southern border and we need to build a border wall. That's Eric Adams' problem here. You can blame the Biden administration until the cows come home, buddy, but the point is there's only one fix to this. It's deportation, and it's closing that southern border with a border wall. Here we go.
Federal aid, which is not happening again. You're anticipating in 2024 more cuts. What do cuts look like in 2024? And can you give me a definitive answer as to one or two what it looks like?
Well, let's be clear. What we're going to have to do, and it's extremely painful, we're going to have to see how do we deliver services to our agencies without the resources we normally have. And so there's a lot of creativity that comes with that, like what we rolled out today of using technology to know where our snow plows are going. We're going to have to become even smarter and better of delivering a product with less resources.
Okay, so when you look at cuts, though, what will there be specifically in terms of cuts?
Well, everything's on the table, but we want to minimize the impact to low-income New Yorkers, our educational institutions, our public safety, and keeping our city straight. But everything's on the table, Dan, because remember, I have to balance the budget by law. We have a $12 billion hole and a 30-something billion dollars.
So there you have it. They've got to balance the budget. This is why the cuts are happening. But Eric Adams, he goes on in that interview and he talks about this meeting that he had with congressional leaders in the Biden administration earlier this month. And he said that he wasn't optimistic about getting help from the federal government to deal with the illegal immigrant crisis plaguing New York City. He also noted that there's this great impact of the migrant and asylum seeker issue, how they're taking away resources that go into the day and go into the day-to-day services of running a city. So, I mean, there's going to be poop in the streets. There's going to be no public safety. And he said that he did not walk out from DC with any level of optimism that anything is going to drastically change. So he's forced to cut the budget. The New York Police Department actually saw a budget cut, and now the department is below 30,000 personnel for New York City. That's incredible. So Eric Adams, what you need to come out and say, dude, it's close the border, deport these people. All right. I do have to take a quick break. We're going to come back talking about Vivek Ramaswamy. how he went after Van Jones here. He said, shut the shut the fudge up. That's what he said on Sunday at AmFest at America Fest. And he said this about a CNN journalismer. That's next on the buzz. Good morning, friends. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. I would greatly appreciate it as well if you went over to my YouTube channel and subscribed today. We are going to be talking about the Great Replacement Theory. Okay, so the Great Replacement Theory is not some sort of right-wing talking point. It's not some sort of right-wing conspiracy theory, but it's really just a basic statement of the Democrat Party, of their platform. So this is the idea that Westerners and the idea that people who love this country, perhaps white people, perhaps not, anybody who just loves this country, they're going to be replaced with people who want free stuff. That's what it comes down to. People who want free stuff. There's this massive influx of people coming from South America, typically, and they're not really fleeing oppressive governments, but they see a social safety net here. They see free stuff, and the left is dangling that like a carrot, and they say, "Hey, free stuff. Well, you got to vote for all the depravity that comes with that." But they get duped. Okay. The illegal immigrants are getting duped because they come here with all of these promises of free stuff. And then they realize, oh man, I have no house. There's poop in my streets. There's no public safety. My family isn't safe. Nobody's family is safe because they've dumped all of this money on, these stipends. And at the end of the day, this is the replacement that's taking place. The free stuff. They want to replace people who love the country with people who replace those people with people who want free stuff. So I'm going to be back on the other side. Smash that like button. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. everybody. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. Donations, we're accepting them, folks, until December 21st. December 21st, I want those donations for our seniors. You can drop off your donations here to 108 Boykins Place. That's our studios. Great Plains Media during normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and through December 21st. So please do that. Seniors staying in long-term care facilities, they suffer from loneliness, especially around the holidays. And we're just trying to brighten the days of our seniors here at Cities 92.9. So drop off your donations today. Say hi. We're looking for some hairbrushes, some body wash, some non-slip slippers, some flannel shirts, even some crossword puzzles. So you can even make a monetary donation at cities99.com. Now, before we took break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Vivek Ramaswamy. So according to the New York Post, this is how they report it. Okay, they say Ramaswamy, who's vying for the GOP nomination for president in 2024, offered a brash suggestion for a cable news personality after Jones said on air that he was shaking during the fourth GOP debate when Ramaswamy spoke because he felt like he was watching, quote, the rise of an American demagogue. So Jones, and like, look, Van Jones, do you know who he is? Comment. Let me know if you know who he is. And I don't think a lot of people know who this guy is, and that should just tell you that these cable news personalities, they do not represent the Black voters. They don't represent the Black community. They don't represent people. Joy Reid, Whoopi Goldberg. They don't represent actual people. So Van Jones, he called this tech art entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, quote, a very, very despicable person whose talking points during the debate were one step away from Nazi propaganda. That's according to The Hill. What? Saying things like Ukraine is not a democracy? It's not. They kill Christians over there, and they're not even having 2024 elections. Okay, and here we have President Zelensky out there pretty much bullying these European countries and us. He said something to the effect that, hey, thanks so much for taking our Ukrainian refugees and taking these people in during this time of war. But, there's no telling what these guys are going to do. Maybe at my order, I'll have them overtake your government and smash things up and burn things up. Like this is what Zelensky said. He goes, there's no telling what they'll do if you don't continue to give us support, if you don't continue to give us money. That's what Zelensky said. He said, look, there's no telling what these Ukrainian refugees are going to do in your countries if you stop giving us money. They're going to have a distaste in their mouth for your country. So what? Are you going to send a group text and say, hey, today's the day, go ahead and start lighting buses on fire because they didn't approve another spending package there in the United States for us. $200 billion so far has gone to Ukraine, by the way. $200 billion. And not to mention the Ukraine ambassador, they literally just hired a straight up witch. She does spirit cookings. She actually invited some high-ranking Democrats to a spirit cooking where the Podesta brothers who worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign, she invited those guys to a spirit cooking. She's a self-proclaimed witch Satanist. Okay, so Ukraine, not a great country. And that's all Vivek said. He said they're not a democracy. And then he also said things like the Great Replacement theory is not a right-wing conspiracy theory, but rather it's a statement of the Democrat Party platform. He also said things like Jan 6 was an inside job. Yes. And this is what Vivek said at Amfest. He says, you get to the mainstream media, and then you've got this character, Van Jones, on CNN saying afterwards, after the debate, the rise of an American demagogue who's going to live 50 years longer than Donald Trump. This is dangerous, and I'm shaking. That's what he says. And then Ramaswamy says, just shut the fudge up. That's what Ramaswamy said. So let's watch Jones. And like I said, I'm live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You guys can see me there. Let's watch Van Jones on CNN here and his comments about Vivek Ramaswamy post-debate. This was the fourth GOP debate. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
now is very, very dangerous because he won't stop Trump, but he's going to outlive Trump by about 50 years. And you're watching the rise of an American demagogue that is a very, very despicable person.
Yeah.
And I literally was shaking listening to him talk because a lot of people don't know that is one step away from Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
But the good thing, Van, you could.
And the smug,
Oh
condescending
boy.
way.
So there he is. That's Van Jones. Wow. This was the response to Vivek saying that the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but just a basic statement of the Democrat Party platform. Okay, that's what Vivek said, and he says that he's some sort of Nazi for saying that. The idea that Westerners and white people, not even white people, I hate this because the Great Replacement theory is so much larger than that. Really, it's this idea that people who love the country should be replaced. And you can call this a replacement theory, and you would still be like, that's not happening. The Democrats don't want to replace white people, or the Democrats don't want to replace people who love the country with people who want free things. And I'll get to that here in a second. If you don't believe it, just watch right here on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, or watch, listen, believe your eyes and believe your ears, because they say the quiet part out loud. This is just a basic statement of the Democrat platform, the Great Replacement theory.
Coming out into the open.
In a few years, we're going to be a majority brown country. White people will not be the majority in the country anymore.
This will be the first generation ever in American history in which whites will be a minority of the generation at some point.
As of 2007, every year, babies being born in this country, whites now are the minority.
In 2044, everyone is going to be a minority.
As the demographics change, as white people become the minority in the country, which is coming.
Demographics is destiny. Demographics is destiny.
Demographics is destiny, right? The country is changing.
I've been saying it here. Other people have been saying it here for years now, even before Donald Trump. The demographics is destiny.
The white population is declining for the first time in history in America, while the number of multiracial Americans have more than doubled.
So we live in a country where the demographics are changing. It's becoming less white.
Correct.
Okay.
You'll be announcing that we're calling the 38 electoral votes of Texas for the Democratic nominee for president. It's changing. It's going to become a purple state and then a blue state because of the demographics, because of the population growth.
The growth in Texas has been almost entirely driven by.
Okay, I think you get the point. Yes, Democrats, they will tell you out loud that this is they're the ones who started this conspiracy, this so-called conspiracy. So they're talking about replacing people who love this country with people who want free things. Just to be clear, I would rather 10 migrants from Uganda who took the naturalization oath and started a business, work hard, and they love this country. I would rather 10 of those than one Swedish socialist. The reality here is that we're not getting a massive influx of Swedish socialists. We're actually getting people from South America who are not fleeing oppressive governments, by the way, but rather they see a social safety net here in America, and they see a social safety net of free stuff that the left dangles in front of them like a little juicy carrot, and they're like, hey, look at this free stuff. Come get this free stuff. But you have to vote for all the depravity that comes with that. Okay, you get the free stuff, but you got to vote Dem. You got to vote Democrat. So this is the replacement that is taking place. I do have to take a quick break. We're going to be back. Did you hear the Pope? This is really sad. The Pope formally approved letting Catholic priests bless same-sex couples. The Vatican announced this on Monday. This is a radical shift in policy. That took place. There was a ban on gay marriage formally in this church, but now Pope Francis has formally approved letting Catholic priests bless same-sex couples. So that's next on the Buzz, Cities 92.9. Give me a text. That's 309-451-9299. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead and smash the like button. Let's get to your comments. Vivek blushed Jones. Yes. And then doesn't the mainstream media actually say Christians are their number one enemy? Yes. Most people coming in will not vote Democrat. Yeah, I hope so. The illegal immigrants, the great replacement theory is that they are replacing people with people who want free stuff. When you are desperate, you will do anything for that free stuff, especially when you spend as much money as you do to come here. So I talked to a Romanian immigrant. He spent like $3,000 to come here. Per head, $3,000 per head. So that's like a total of $9,000. That's a lot of money in Romania. Now he left his family, the rest of his family, and he came here, and he spent every dime he had to get here. Okay. And when you are that broke and you have no family, no friends, here in America, then you will resort to pretty much anything in order to get um, free stuff. So great point. I'm back. Good morning. Hey, Ryan, he commented, he said, this is going to backfire. Most people coming here to the country, illegal immigrants, they're not going to vote Democrat. You know, I thought the same thing because a lot of these folks, they are conservative in nature. They're very religious. Romania, they've got a conservative culture. But I spoke with a Romanian illegal immigrant, and he was talking about how he spent every last dime to get here. Usually, what will happen, they'll fly from their country to a different country. Then they'll fly to the United or to Mexico, and then they'll get off there, and then they will have a mule traffic them, because that's really what it is, up to the border, not across the border, but up to the border. And what these guys, they're big, scary guys, Mexican guys who have these massive guns, and they say, you're going to pay us $3,000 a head. So this guy probably spent like 9 grand. That's a lot of money to get here, just from Mexico, not to mention how he got all of these planes and tickets and things like that to get over here. But he dumped all of his money into this. He's here without his family, or without any kind of resources, no home. A lot of people, if they're desperate enough, will do pretty much anything, even if that means voting Democrat. So I kind of disagree. I do understand that I don't think that these people want to vote Democrat. I think that the Democrats are going to bully them into voting Democrat, because they don't get the free stuff if they don't. So really, that's what the great replacement theory is. It's taking people who love the country, getting rid of them, and replacing them with people who want free stuff. And we're told that this was the place to get it. So I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about this. The Pope, which is bizarro world. The Pope, the Church. And I like what he says here. You got to get out of the church. You got to get out of the church if you are actively blessing gay marriage, gay couples, then it's time to leave that church. This is a comment that I had come in via the text line. Let me know what you think about it. But Pope Francis, he formally signed off on allowing Roman Catholic priests to administer blessings to same-sex couples, provided the rituals don't resemble the sacrament of marriage. So this happened. It's very controversial among the Catholic Church community. The Vatican statement was heralded by some as a step toward breaking down discrimination in the Catholic Church. Some LGBTQ advocates warned, underscored the church's idea that gay couples remain inferior to heterosexual partners. So some advocates, there's a part there where it can't like be it can't resemble the sacrament of marriage. So you can do the blessings of these couples and administer the blessings, but I think there's like a part where it can't be the same. So I've got to go. You guys have a great rest of your day. I appreciate you tuning in. As always, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Bye-bye. Love you.